Are you willing to take his word for it? Whoever Trump says to vote for, you vote for.
I do. Anything he says, everything he says is true. It comes true.
Trump is a genius. Put your mind, his mind, and my mind together, we don't match Trump's brain. That man's a genius, and he's cut from a different cloth, a different material.
Well, there you go. With me now from Orlando is NBC News political reporter Ali Vitale, who was at last night's rally, spoke with those Trump supporters, and during the 2016 campaign was in that pen quite a bit, as they call that press pen there. Ali joins our roundtable of Susan, Michael, and Howard. So, Ali, first, just give us a taste of that rally last night. It just seemed a little rowdier than we've seen a Trump rally in a while.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment, Chuck. I have a really high tolerance for these rallies after being at hundreds and hundreds of them. And even I was pretty stunned last night as I was standing in the press pen watching these folks go after Jim Acosta and try to screw up the CNN live shot. The thing that's stunning to me is that they were doing that even before the president got on stage. So it's not like they were trying to be, it's not like they were being egged on. Yeah. It was more a matter of they felt that this was the thing that they wanted to do. And I also think that in the course of talking to several voters who were there last night, I asked them point blank, when you hear the president talk about fake news or the media being the enemy of the people, they all told me, yes, that's true. And one man summed it up for me so perfectly, and he said, it's because they're saying things that I don't believe. So it's not even a matter of fact anymore. Anything that kind of goes against what they believe in President Trump or what they believe themselves is suddenly fake to them.
Was it rowdy for rowdy's sake, or shall we say, did we have the too many open concession stands last night?
I didn't see anything like that there, but I will say I've seen this kind of across the country, and it does depend where you are, but people here obviously were very in the pocket of the president, and they wanted to show that they supported him. And I think that they see this war on the media as one way that they can show Trump that they're there to have his back against people who they feel are constantly maligning him every day on the airwaves.
Well, let me play for you Sarah Sanders, play this for the panel here. Here's how she responded to a question about it, where when you listen to her answer, I want you to ask yourself this: is she condoning verbal abuse of the press? Take a listen.
This is a two-way street. We certainly support a free press. We certainly condemn violence against anybody, but we also ask that people act responsibly and report accurately and fairly.
Said no one was being violent last night in terms of hitting anybody, and no broadcaster was broadcasting state secrets. They were trying to do stand-ups at a public rally, and you had people trying to yell over them, preventing them from doing their jobs, and yelling that their network sucks on live TV.
Look,
does the White House support that or not?
While we certainly support freedom of the press, we also support freedom of speech, and we think that those things go hand in hand.
Again, I'm going to present it to the three of you. She didn't use the phrase, sounded like she's condoning verbal abuse.
Well, she's certainly not saying it's a bad thing. She's not saying the president wished they hadn't done that.
They drew the line at violence. I appreciate the physical violence, but that's what they do.
You know, I think this is the same phenomenon we see with his tweets toward Robert Mueller. I think this is an effort to undermine faith in the institutions that could hold the president accountable down the road, so that when the press does stories that are critical of the president or they expose malfeasance by the administration, that they just won't be believed by his followers.
We've become othered. The press has become othered in Trump world.
In many respects, that's very true, and it is the place where he likes to keep the press, because that way it's impersonal. It's not. It's one of these things that people look
dehumanize
at. It's dehumanize them. It's a generic wash. It applies to everyone who has journalists as part of their background or media. But let's be clear here: all of this craziness stops if one man says stop.
Yeah.
So we sit here, we want to parse it and try to intellectualize and understand it and psychoanalyze this. This is Trump's creation, and whatever comes of it rests on his head, no one else's. You can't blame the people in that audience. You can point fingers at him and say, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have gone after that reporter. But this rests on the man who perpetuates it and allows it to happen in his presence.
And Howard, it does feel like we could have. Just remember, as candidate, he said the following: I love the old days, you know, what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this. They'd be carried out in a stretcher, folks. That's
Well,
that's Canada Trump.
When I was covering rallies of Donald Trump in 2015 and 2016, I felt at times he was dangling that dangerous possibility out there, but in a way that he could still draw back from it. What Sarah Sanders said today, I guarantee you, is 1/3 of what Donald Trump must have said to her in the Oval Office. In other words, I think he was probably even harsher than she was right there. What she's essentially saying is, hey, you asked me tough questions that I consider to be unfair here in the White House. Right. That's what you're going to get out there. And Susan's absolutely right, and you're right. This is part of the campaign by Donald Trump to measure the intensity of his support in places like Tampa, the dislike of the press within his group. Yeah. To see what he can get away with when it comes to the question, again, I say, of shutting down Mueller or pardoning Manafort and Gates. That's what he's sitting there calculating right now. And this rally last night was his way of gathering strength to see when he can pull that off. I'm convinced that's what he's thinking.
Allie, you've been through a lot of these, and I know only a handful of times have you ever expressed your concern for your personal safety. Were you at that point last night or no?
I mean, I was not at that point last night, but that's only because there was no one physically threatening me. I have been in those situations where I have felt threatened before, but I guess the point that I want to circle back to, and the thing that is the most potentially dangerous to me, is that when you guys talk about this being kind of devoid of the humanity, it's like the faceless media, and most people are okay with going against a person that they don't know. But I even had folks saying to me last night, one of the women I was talking to was saying, Jim is bad at his job, but you're very professional. So they can delineate between this idea of CNN sucks, which is presidentially branded at this point, and talking to an independent reporter who's just standing in front of them asking them questions at a rally. But it's completely, it's an attack devoid of humanity.
I was wondering, because the other experience I know you've had, and I hope you share with viewers, is the president will do this rally and he'll beat the living daylights of the press, and we'll see the jeers come in. And then there's the whispers, hey, by the way, I respect what you do. Did you get some of that last night?
Actually, no, and I was kind of surprised because as much as people were willing to talk, they were not willing to say good job, by the way, so no.
And by the way, the president has only begun to fan the bellows on this fall. This is only warming up. He's trotting this amped up version of it out, and it's going to be major all the way through the fall, even more than you saw in the 2016 campaign.
You know, I spoke to a class of Army folks, young officers in the Army last week, and I always thank them for their service, and two of them thanked me for my service.
I had that
and
by someone. It totally threw me off. I'm like, whoa. You put yourself in harm's way.
Exactly.
You're like, no, you are too, and you're like,
right.
I hope not, frankly. And like, I wasn't what I signed up for.
That is striking to me, that there are Americans who see this as, Americans who are not journalists, who see this as threatening.
Well, he's effectively declared war on journalists in this country. He's made them the scapegoat for all of his shortcomings and failings. And it's an easy target to go after because, again, you represent a broader piece of a narrative that, you know, he can go after.
The fact that you think, and I think there's a lot to what you say, that the president has concluded that we're an easy target. Is in and of itself a sea change. I'm old enough.
We don't have a political party to defend ourselves.
Yeah,
like we're not.
Right.
We're a neutral entity.
Even Richard Nixon, who was out after the press, in many ways did it through subterfuge and in secret through the IRS, not always in public, and not as part of a open, front and center political strategy the way this is.
Except Spiro Agnew. But
yeah, that was Spiro Agnew, not Richard Nixon.
Nattering nabobs of negativity. But actually, those were gentle. That was gentle.
Yeah.
That sounds mild. Ali Vitale, thank you for sharing. I know it's uncomfortable to talk about yourself as a story, but thank you for your professionalism and for the way you represent NBC News out there.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.